Welcome to episode number 2 of the Foxhole. I am your host, James Rosen, in Washington, and someday these early episodes will be collector's items on eBay, I assure you, just like Action Comics #1. This is a new online program airing every other Friday right here on live.foxnews.com. Right below me on your screen, you can use your Facebook or Twitter accounts to chat with us and send me your questions. Despite some persistent technological issues, we will try to read them on the air. Our first segment plunges us directly into Foxhole politics. We are joined by Marjorie Clifton, 2 seats away from me, the principal of Clifton Consulting and founder of SpikeTheWaterCooler.com. Ms. Clifton's previous communications clients include the State Department and the World Wildlife Fund. And you can follow her on Twitter via @MarjorieClifton. Then in the print dress, so that you can distinguish between our guests, with us is Sabrina Schaeffer, Executive Director of the Independent Women's Forum. Ms. Schaeffer has previously worked for Republican Senator George Voinovich of Ohio and the Republican Jewish Coalition. She is tweetable via @SL_Schaeffer. We thank you both for joining us. And so just broadly, we begin with your various takes on the state of the presidential race right now. Marjorie.
State of the presidential race. Well, the economic numbers were not good today, so that does not fare well for the Obama campaign right now.
69,000 jobs created in the month of May.
Yeah, so it's they're not climbing as we would hope, which does mean that all eyes are on really the economy. And we know every election ends up playing to the economy, and so right now that's what the Obama administration is really going to be struggling with. I mean, as we've been seeing in a lot of the polling numbers, well, particularly with women, which is what we really care about, that Romney has fared a little bit better with women than he was. Obama still has a very strong lead in that department, as he did in 2008. So all eyes on the economy and women right now.
Women we should care about, both because they're women and because they have outnumbered male voters in every presidential election since 1984 going forward. Sabrina, let's take a look at a poll with you, if we could. The first one they're both Washington Post ABC News polls, and the first shows basic favorability ratings, and we see that President Obama has gone down from April till now 56% to 52%, while Mitt Romney has gone up from 35% in April to 41%. And then let's take a look at our second poll, also from the Washington Post and ABC News, which shows favorability among women. And in that category, again, we see a striking decline for President Obama from April till now, 58% to 51%, and for Governor Romney, a striking surge, 27% to 40%. So, Sabrina, would it appear that the Democratic war on women rhetoric has not hit its mark?
Yeah, exactly. I think that what we're finding is that women do not want to see gender politics taking place right now. They want to see this president tackling these very difficult economic, issues head on. And poll after poll is showing us that people feel as though the country is moving in the wrong direction, yet still we're talking about this, mythical war on women, if you will.
So, Marjorie, I mean, we've been talking about contraception and we've been talking about equal pay and those other issues. Was that all designed just to stoke the Democratic base? Was it designed really targeting independent voters or independent women voters?
Well, it was just sort of interesting timing. And actually, if you look at the poll numbers back in, April, when all of this sort of erupted around birth control.
The Sandra Fluck controversy.
Yeah, a lot of the social issues that were directly related to women. What we did see was a huge jump in Obama's polling numbers. He went up to actually 18%. Instead of at 12%, which is where he won the election at those 12% numbers. So it was a pretty profound jump. What that told us is actually that he polls very well and that Democrats were polling very well in their policies towards women. So, war on women, whatever you want to call it. The reality is we're finding with independents, Democrats and Republicans, especially on the contraceptive issue, they kind of feel like it's an issue government should stay out of. They agreed with where Democrats were on the position, especially around birth control. And I think that had to do with this spike. And I think now it's more of an evening out. I don't think that it's necessarily been a dramatic shift, but just an evening out on the numbers.
An evening out.
Yeah, and part of that is that I think the war on women has come to encompass much, much more than just reproductive issues, right? So now you have the life of Julia. It's talking about everything from Head Start to student loans to health care to how you're going to save for retirement. And I think more and more women and men are saying, you know what, I don't like this idea of a cradle-to-grave government hand-holding. And the war on women is this idea now that government has to support you from the moment you're born until, unfortunately, you die.
Sabrina, does Mitt Romney have this fabled problem we've been hearing about for some time now in terms of connecting to normal people?
Well, I feel as though maybe Mitt Romney's gotten a little bit, it's been a little rough for him on this one particular front, but I think it's a little one-sided. We often are sort of demonizing him as part of Bain Capital. Very often I think we're not looking at the full picture. Bain Capital is not all bad. They, yes, took apart businesses, but they also grew businesses, created new jobs, some very big, important companies that we now know about, Staples, Dunkin' Donuts,
Sure.
you know. So I think that in many ways, yes, he's had some trouble connecting, but also with men, and I think that this is hard for any political candidate. You get up there, you're in the limelight, you know, some people, like President Obama, have a lot easier time rolling up their sleeves and sort of jumping onto the campaign trail.
And there is definitely a likability piece that plays into elections. I would say economy is the #1 driver. With women, they absolutely care about the economy. Social issues come into play in a different way. And then there is the likability thing, which I do think, you know, Obama is having a much easier time with and has had an easier time with, and Romney's got to sort of keep trying, keeping on.
But we don't want to forget how much everyone likes Mad Men right now. It's a popular show, and the fact is that Mitt Romney sort of fits into that 1960s mold that so many women especially like.
Well, control issue too. Amazing.
The Democrats have sought to use him, Mad Men against him, have actually used Mad Men and said Mitt Romney's a throwback to an era when men were more or less bestial to women. Let me ask you about Bain Capital, because Sabrina brought that up. Has that backfired on the president? We saw the remarks of Cory Booker. We saw the remarks of former President Clinton last night, wherein he suggested that this was a misguided venue for attack.
Well, I think it's challenging. I mean, it's hard to go after one of the things that he claims is one of his greatest economic successes, but it's all about the numbers. I mean, when you're talking about job creation and what his business actually did is it cut jobs. So whether it worked, whether it didn't, I think there's a lot of people who disagree. I mean, how you make a business successful in one way sometimes means cutting employment, but
as with General Motors, for example, under the Obama administration's stewardship, right?
Well, they helped fund and helped absolutely help with the auto bailout. It was, you know, General Motors' independent decision, not the government's decision to cut jobs in order to do so. But yes, it did help pull them.
Sure,
it helped pull. Right? Sure. Well, it helped pull them. Their decision to do that helped pull them forward in the economy. Mitt Romney was directly involved with the decision-making at Bain Capital. That's the difference. But I'm not saying it was necessarily...
Although the steel mill that has been so prominently featured in the Democratic ads and so forth closed 2 years after Mitt Romney left Bain Capital. Sabrina, Bain Capital a problem for Mitt Romney, or is this going to somehow morph into an advantage for him?
I'm hoping it morphs into an advantage, and I think it's better... Well, I think that what he needs to do is to point to what's going on here in Washington. And if you look at what's on tap next week in the Congress, Senate's poised to have a cloture vote on the Paycheck Fairness Act, which is a jobs killer. So, I mean, if the Romney campaign is smart, they'll look at this and they'll say, look, I was helping to create jobs and create economic development through Bain Capital. The Congress is busier playing gender politics rather than tackling these economic issues.
Marjorie, we'll have to come back to this, to your expression of incredulity at the assertion that this is a jobs killer, this piece of legislation, because I want to get you both on another subject, which is the looming choice for Mitt Romney about the vice presidential ticket spot. Do you, either of you, see a woman in the running at all? Is that an imperative for him?
I don't know that it's an imperative. I think women know that we can play well in politics, we can run a race as we need to, and I think that conversation, since Sarah Palin, since Hillary Clinton, has sort of taken on a different nature. It isn't this you need a woman to win it. I think women understand we want somebody who's smart and effective. It doesn't necessarily have to be a woman, but women can be that candidate. However, right now, there's not a specific person, I think, that would play to all of the things that the Republican Party needs in that vice president. So I mean, what are your thoughts on who?
Well, yeah, I always thought, you know, look, it's the bottom of the ticket. It generally, historically, does not have the kind of impact that, you know, we like to talk about it having. However, that being said, Sarah Palin sort of changed the terms of the conversation. I mean, she injected sort of an enthusiasm and an excitement into a campaign where it was sorely needed. Perhaps that's what's needed now, although I think that people are rallying behind Mitt Romney now because they really want to do whatever it takes to defeat President Obama.
We have to leave it there. I thank you both for your liveliness and enthusiasm and the energy that you've injected into this national conversation right here. Marjorie Clifton and Sabrina Schaeffer, my thanks to you both. Coming up next, when we return here, when we will explore Foxhole society, the mayor of New York taking on large sugary drinks. Does that leave a bad taste in your mouth? Stay with us for more on the Foxhole.